The moment I opened my front door, I knew something was wrong. Not because of the strange floral haze of cheap incense choking the air, not because of the techno beat thudding faintly from somewhere deep inside. It was the sound, a syrupy, high-pitched voice echoing through my once silent condo, floating from the living room like some warped lullaby. And this, it purred, is where I manifested my morning mindset. I stepped inside and stopped cold. My heart slammed into my ribs. There were ring lights everywhere, tripods like metal limbs, clothes, not mine, draped across my cream couch, makeup palettes exploded across the marble counter. And there she was, Savannah, my sister, filming in my home and smiling like she owned the place. Hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. Let me rewind. My name is Claire Sutton, and this condo, this 18th floor corner unit in downtown Austin, wasn't handed to me. I bought it, 6 years of 60-hour weeks at a creative agency. I climbed from junior copywriter to head of brand storytelling, saved like a maniac, lived in studio apartments where my mattress doubled as a dinner table. This space? My reward, my sanctuary. The only thing in my life that was truly mine. 2 months ago, I took a sabbatical to finish my first novel. I rented a tiny casita in Santa Fe, disconnected from the internet, and told my family, please don't use my place. I need it untouched when I return. They said, of course, they lied. Savannah? My voice cracked as I stepped over a pair of strappy heels and a spilled smoothie bowl. What are you doing here? She squealed and spun around, ring light glowing behind her like a holy halo. Claire, you're back early, she said, still holding her phone out like I was a prop in her content. This is perfect. Say hi to my followers. I stared at the lens, then at the disaster around me. The couch was stained with what looked like self-tanner. A glass ring sat dried into my vintage walnut coffee table. There was a wine splash across the wall beneath the floating bookshelf I'd built with my bare hands. Turn it off, I said. She blinked. This is gold, Claire. Surprise family moment. Raw emotion. I stepped forward. Turn it off. With an eye roll, she tapped her screen and finally lowered the phone. You weren't supposed to be back for another week. Mom said I could stay till then. Mom said? Savannah busied herself picking up a sequin jacket from the floor. She thought it would be fine. Your place was just sitting empty, and I needed a better backdrop for my brand series. You know how important aesthetic is for engagement? No, I said flatly. What I know is that you're trespassing and you trashed my home. Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. This place was begging for a little glow up. Your vibe is kind of beige. Get out. Her smile faltered just a flicker. You're serious? Yes, you and all of this. Out. Now. The front door opened again. I brought the green juices you like. My mother's voice sang out before she even appeared. Then she rounded the corner, designer sunglasses perched on her head, shopping bags in hand. She stopped mid-step. Claire, darling? Her tone shifted from cheerful to calculating in seconds. What are you doing back? I looked between them, my sister still clutching her phone, my mother already scanning the room like she was planning a magazine shoot. I live here, I said. What are you doing here? Mom set her bags down gently, as if soft placement would neutralize betrayal. Now, sweetheart, don't get upset. Savannah's content has really been taking off. We thought we'd help her while you were away. It's just family supporting family. I looked at my ruined living room. You helped her commit fraud. Don't be ridiculous, Mom scoffed. It's not fraud, it's marketing. Everyone embellishes a little online. She never explicitly said she owned it. Yes, she did, I said. She said she manifested this luxury apartment. She told her followers she bought it after leveling up. That's not marketing, that's impersonation. Claire, Savannah snapped, this space has incredible lighting, and my sponsor for the luxury skincare collab specifically requested a minimalist, high-end location. Do you have any idea what's riding on this? Yeah, I said. My name, my lease, my career if this implodes publicly. They didn't respond. I walked to my bedroom. The door was unlocked. My stomach turned. Every surface had been transformed into a makeup studio. My writing desk was shoved into the closet. Command strip marks dotted the walls. And on the floor, half covered by a lighting bag, was my flash drive. The one I'd hidden. The one with security footage, contracts, passwords. I picked it up slowly, the weight of it grounding me. In the hallway, Savannah was still talking. "You can't just throw me out, Claire. I have contracts, followers. This is my career." "I have evidence," I said, stepping back into the living room. They froze. "What?" "Security cameras, documents, everything." Mom narrowed her eyes. "Claire, let's be reasonable." I took out my phone and dialed. "Hi, Miriam. It's Claire Sutton. I'd like to report unauthorized occupancy in Unit 1803. Yes, I'll hold." I didn't expect them to show up the next morning, let alone with iced coffees in a binder. My mother walked in like she still had a key, because she did, apparently, and Savannah trailed behind, wearing my sweatshirt and sunglasses far too expensive for someone who's never had a real job. I stood in my kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter as they made themselves comfortable in what used to be my space. "We need to talk," Mom announced, placing the binder on the dining table, the table I refinished myself over 3 weekends, sanding and staining every inch with my bare hands. "We're not doing this," I said. "Claire, please." She sighed like I was the unreasonable one, the one who had crossed a line. "Let's sit down and discuss like adults. Savannah has obligations, real contracts. It's not as simple as kicking her out." "She doesn't live here," I said. "She never did." Savannah scoffed, slumping into a chair with one leg folded beneath her. "Do you even know what a brand alignment deadline is?" "Do you know what trespassing is?" I snapped back. Mom opened the binder, flipping through colorful tabs and printed email threads. "Look, we've been working on a plan, just hear us out." I said nothing, letting the silence hang like a blade. "It's temporary," she continued. 3 months, maybe 4 max. We've even found a few lovely studio apartments near Zilker. The rent's covered. You'd have more peace to write, and Savannah can, use my home as a prop?" I said. "Turn my life into her content?" Savannah rolled her eyes. "God, Claire, you're so dramatic. I'm literally trying to build something here, something real. My skincare line needs authenticity. That's why your condo works. It feels lived in. Because it is, by me. You're being selfish." That word, selfish, the word they always pulled out when I set boundaries, when I said no to co-signing loans or handing over credit cards, when I didn't want to invest in Dad's restaurant idea or cover Savannah's tuition after her 3rd drop semester. "What's selfish," I said carefully, "is thinking you can just move into someone's life and claim it as your own." "You're not using it," Savannah shot back. "You write. You can do that anywhere. Meanwhile, I have brands expecting content tomorrow. I'm under pressure, Claire." I stared at her, wondering if she even heard herself. "You're under pressure? Try watching your entire identity repackaged and monetized without your permission." "Claire," Mom interjected, her voice smoothing out, the way it always did when she was about to gaslight me. "This doesn't have to be a war. We're just asking you to support your sister, for once. She's finally found something that works, something that makes her visible." She made herself visible by pretending to be me. Mom closed the binder. "We've prepared an offer. 3 months rent up front, moving services. We'll even handle utility transfers. It's a fair compromise." "It's not a compromise," I said. "It's a buyout." "Think of it as an investment," Savannah added. "In family." I let out a laugh, bitter and sharp. "Family, right?" I picked up the binder and flipped through it. There, between a printed email from a luxury skincare brand and a rough shoot schedule, was a sponsorship contract. The address listed? Mine. The name on the signature line? Mine. My handwriting forged with surprising skill. "You signed this in my name," I said, holding up the page. "You're impersonating me." Savannah sat straighter. "It's just a formality. They don't care who technically owns the place. They just need assurance it fits the aesthetic." "That's not how legality works." "Don't be so uptight. It's not being uptight to not want to go to prison." "Nobody's going to prison," Mom snapped, the veneer cracking. "This is all being blown out of proportion." "By whom?" I asked. "Me, for wanting my own home back? For not wanting my sister to pretend she's the one who bought it?" You're so obsessed with control, Savannah muttered. No, I said, voice low. I'm obsessed with boundaries, and you've never respected a single one. Silence fell again. Outside the window, Austin's skyline blinked into view through the mid-morning haze. I felt a strange detachment settle over me, like watching a scene from someone else's life. You have 2 hours? I said finally. 2 hours to gather your things. Then I'm calling building security. Mom's mouth fell open. Claire, no negotiation. You ungrateful little... Stop. I turned away, walked to the door, and opened it. You have 2 hours, starting now. Savannah stood slowly, eyes narrowing. You'll regret this. Not as much as you will, I said. She stormed out first, muttering about followers and lost content. Mom lingered at the door, her expression unreadable. You know, she said quietly, you've always been difficult. And you've always expected me to stay silent? I replied. That ends now. She said nothing more, just turned and walked away, heels clicking like punctuation. I closed the door behind them and locked it. For the first time in weeks, maybe longer, I was alone in my home. But it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like standing in the center of a battlefield before the real war begins. I knew this wasn't over. They wouldn't go quietly. Not with followers, sponsors, and image at stake. Not with me finally saying no. I sat at the table, the binder still open, and started scanning each page. I labeled the contracts, noted the dates, highlighted the forged signatures. Then I opened a new folder on my laptop. Legal evidence, Sutton case. I added the files from the flash drive. Videos, documents, voice recordings. I hadn't even told them yet about the cameras hidden in the vintage lamps, the real-time uploads to cloud storage, or the footage of Jackson charging delivery orders to my business account. That would come later. For now, I documented. For now, I prepared. This wasn't just about kicking them out. This was about reclaiming what they'd stolen. Not just my space, but my identity, my name, my story. They'd chosen to turn my life into content. I was going to turn it into a case file, and this time, I was the one writing the narrative. The morning after I kicked them out, the silence in my condo was suffocating. It wasn't peace, it was the kind of quiet that hums with aftershock. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see if I'd cave. But I didn't. Instead, I poured a cup of black coffee, sat at my kitchen island, and stared out at the Austin skyline like it was a puzzle I couldn't quite solve. Then I stood up, crossed the living room, and dropped to my knees in front of the built-in bookshelf. Behind the second row, tucked in a false panel I installed myself after the credit card incident, was my safe. Nothing high-tech, just a discreet fireproof box with a combination dial. I turned it slowly, hands shaking more than I cared to admit. Click. Inside was a flash drive, 2 terabytes, password protected. I'd started loading it up the year Savannah borrowed my identity to qualify for a car loan. She said it was temporary, said she'd handle the payments. She didn't. My credit took 2 years to recover. I told myself it wouldn't happen again. And then, like always, it did. I took the flash drive to my laptop and plugged it in. The file tree loaded instantly. Folders labeled building cams, signed docs, financial fraud, suspected, and a new one I had made on the plane home. Savannah, content theft. It was time to look. The security footage played silently. Savannah entering with her arms full of camera gear. Jackson, her boyfriend, lugging in ring lights and a collapsible green screen. Multiple people I didn't know lounging in my living room, sipping cocktails from my glassware, one of them sprawled on my sectional with shoes on. Another shot, Savannah recording a brand haul video at my dining table, captioned, "Touring my new downtown space, I manifested this." I clicked pause. My name was on the lease, my mortgage, my taxes. Nothing about this was hers. And yet, to her 2 million followers, I didn't exist. I opened the folder labeled Contracts. These weren't just influencer agreements. These were full-blown business documents, some signed, others in negotiation, with my address, my legal name, and Savannah's signature written as if she were me. Some had actual forged copies of my handwriting. Some had digital signatures lifted from PDFs I'd sent my parents for completely unrelated paperwork. She'd used me to secure a 6-month skincare ambassador deal worth $30,000, a luxury apartment-style brand partnership using photos of my condo, At least 3 video collaborations sponsored by wellness apps, all tagged in the location metadata as Claire Sutton, owner. I took a long, shaky breath. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated. My phone buzzed. Nate Bennett. Work I picked up immediately. Claire, you okay? He asked. I need legal advice, I said. Off the record for now. There was a pause. What kind of legal? The identity theft with a side of commercial fraud kind. Jesus. I told him everything, quickly but clearly. Nate had worked in brand risk management before shifting to copywriting. He wasn't a lawyer, but he understood the way the influencer economy worked. Do you have proof? I sent him 3 files mid-call, one of Savannah signing a contract using my name, one of Jackson filming a walkthrough, calling himself co-owner, and one of my mother giving a tour to what looked like a group of investors. Oh my God, Nate muttered. That's not just sketchy, that's felony territory. I know. You need to talk to a lawyer, like now, and lock down your condo lease. They might have tried to claim residency. I already called Miriam, the building manager. She's reviewing security logs and lease violations today. Claire, he hesitated. You're really going through with this? I leaned back in my chair. They turned my life into a product. They lied, stole, trashed everything I worked for. I'm done being the one who just fixes it behind the scenes. Another pause. Then, I'm proud of you. His voice was soft, and for a second, I felt like I might cry. But there was no time for that. Not yet. That evening, I received a knock at my door. It was Miriam, clipboard in hand, jaw tight. I've been reviewing footage, she said. It's worse than I thought. She handed me a report, 17 noise complaints, 6 resident emails citing privacy invasion, unauthorized use of shared rooftop space for commercial shoots, one very disturbing clip of Jackson drunkenly dangling a champagne bottle off my balcony. If this goes any further, Miriam said, they'll terminate your lease for policy violations. Even though it's your unit, the HOA rules apply. They've turned your condo into a liability. I'm aware, I said quietly. She looked at me. I know you're not the one responsible, but legally, you're on the hook unless you take action. I'm already building the case. She nodded. Good. Let me know how I can help. As she left, I closed the door and locked it behind her, this time out of habit, not fear. Then I sat down at my laptop, opened a fresh Word document, typed, Evidence Log, Claire Sutton, Unit 1803. They had followers, they had likes, they had sponsors and soft lighting and curated grief. But I had time-stamped videos. I had legal documents. I had truth. They wanted to turn my life into content. Now it was evidence, and I was just getting started. I didn't sleep the night I compiled the final evidence folder, not because I was afraid. No, fear had burned out and calcified into something colder, something clear. It was the first time I'd ever felt truly awake in my own life. While the rest of the world scrolled through Savannah's Instagram stories, filled with filter-soft confessions and syrupy stay strong comments, I was drafting a cease and desist letter. I'd consulted with a lawyer Nate recommended. A woman named Jordan Nguyen, calm and precise, who didn't flinch when I told her my own family had forged my name on brand contracts and monetized my home without consent. She just asked for documentation. I gave her gigabytes. By morning, the letter was sent, hand-delivered to Savannah and my parents' temporary rental by a legal courier. One copy also went to each of Savannah's major sponsors. I included copies of signed contracts, my building's violation reports, and screenshots of every post tagging my address. At 10:07 a.m., my phone exploded. The first call was from Mom. I didn't answer. The second was Savannah. I let it ring. The third was a video call from an unknown number, which I ignored until I opened Instagram and saw Savannah had gone live. Again. She was crying. Of course she was. She sniffled into the camera, her voice catching perfectly between sobs. I don't know why she's doing this. I'm my own sister. After everything I've done to build a brand that helps people feel confident and seen, she's trying to destroy it. Thousands of people watched as she held up the letter like it was a hate crime. She's accusing me of things I didn't do. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to create beauty in the world. The comments flooded in. Stay strong, Queen. Family should support family. She's just jealous. Keep rising. I closed the app. I wasn't going to argue with her followers. I had a bigger audience now, lawyers, building officials, and brands who were suddenly very, very interested in whether they'd been defrauded. By noon, I received my first apology email from a wellness brand that had used Savannah's videos for their ad campaign. They assured me they'd immediately remove all content featuring my condo and would reassess future collaboration agreements with her team. I smiled, just a little. Then came the knock at my door. I opened it slowly, expecting delivery or management. Instead, it was my parents. Mom strode in like she still owned the place. Dad followed, quieter, eyes downcast. "You've gone too far," she said without greeting. "No, I finally went far enough." She slammed the letter down on the counter. "This? Overreacting over what? A few harmless videos helping your sister? You mean forging my name and using my home as a commercial studio?" "Yeah," I reacted. "Claire, don't be dramatic. It's family." "You keep using that word like it's a defense." "It's not. Not anymore." Dad tried to play mediator, stepping between us. "We get it. You're upset. But this could ruin her career, Claire. Do you understand that?" "She's the one who ruined it, not me." He sighed. "She has sponsors threatening lawsuits. One of them reached out to us directly. They want their money back. She could face actual charges, criminal ones." Then maybe she should have thought of that before she used my identity like a stage name. My mom's eyes narrowed. "You don't even like this place that much. You spent 2 months away. You didn't even tell us when you'd be back." "Because I knew exactly what would happen if I did." She stepped closer, voice low. "You are punishing her because you've never liked that she gets attention. Admit it." "You mean the attention she gets for stealing other people's lives and filtering them for likes?" "She's your sister, Claire." "Not anymore." Dad ran a hand down his face. "How much would it take to fix this? Seriously. A number. We'll pay rent for a year, help you move. You can write anywhere, right?" There it was. The bribe. "I don't want your money," I said. "I want my name back." The front door opened without knocking. Savannah walked in like she was walking onto a stage, face bare but perfect, lips trembling as if on cue. "I just want to talk," she said, holding the cease and desist letter like it had wounded her physically. "You've had plenty of chances." "I didn't know it would go this far," she said. "I was just trying to make something out of my life. I didn't think you'd actually turn on me." I blinked. "You turned on me the second you signed your first deal as Claire Sutton." "I needed that deal," she cried. "They wouldn't work with someone without a property asset. Do you know how this industry works?" "Yeah," I said. "It runs on lies until the truth finally shows up." "You're blowing up everything." "No," I said. "I'm cleaning up the mess you made. There's a difference." For a moment, no one spoke. Savannah's eyes darted between us, desperate for someone to side with her. But Dad wouldn't meet her gaze, and even Mom had gone quiet. Finally, Savannah said softly, "What do you want?" "I want you out of my condo, of my contracts, of my name, completely, permanently. I can't undo the posts." "But you can tell the truth," I said. "Publicly, on every channel you used to lie." Savannah stared at me, lips parting like she might scream, but no words came out. I walked to the door and opened it. "Get out." They left one by one. Mom shooting daggers with her eyes, Dad giving me a weak nod, Savannah last, pausing in the hallway. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You're right," I said. "It's just beginning." And when the door shut, I locked it. Then I sat down, reopened my laptop, and added 3 more names to my legal file. This time, under a new tab. Defendants. 3 days after serving Savannah the cease and desist, I thought the worst was behind me. The silence in the condo had started to settle again, like dust after demolition. I'd spent the past 72 hours in a quiet routine of documenting, cleaning, and occasionally staring into space, half expecting her to burst through the door again, armed with a ring light and a fresh excuse. But nothing happened. No more calls from Mom, no more half-hearted texts from Dad. Savannah, for once in her life, had gone completely offline. Or so I thought. It was nearly midnight when my phone buzzed. Not with a call or a message, but with a push notification from an app I didn't even remember downloading. An old social media aggregator Nate had installed months ago to monitor brand mentions. A live video was trending, and the address in the metadata was mine. I clicked it without thinking. The feed loaded with music, bass heavy and relentless, accompanied by distorted laughter. The camera panned shakily through a packed crowd of people, most of them mid-20s, some barely looking legal. They danced on my hardwood floors, spilled drinks on my restored vintage rug, used my kitchen counters as bottle service stations. I recognized two of Savannah's influencer friends instantly. Their overly contoured faces and fake sympathy DMs still fresh in my inbox. And then came the voice. "What's up, beautiful people?" Jackson's face filled the frame, flushed and glistening, one arm thrown casually around a girl I'd never seen before. "We're coming to you live from the sickest penthouse in Austin." I froze. Penthouse? He turned the camera, giving a sweeping shot of my living room. Trash transformed into what looked like a rented club space. Pillows tossed onto the floor, someone dancing with shoes on my dining table, red Solo cups stacked in my antique china cabinet. And there, near the back, Savannah stood in one of my dresses, holding a bottle of champagne above her head. "She's going through some family drama," Jackson continued, the smirk on his face sharp as a blade. "So we're throwing her the ultimate cheer-up party." Savannah lifted the bottle like a trophy, her voice slurring slightly as she yelled into the camera. "Who needs haters when you have 2 million followers?" The comment section on the live feed was exploding. Hearts, laughing emojis, fire symbols. Someone shouted about the view and ran toward the balcony. The camera followed. I saw the edge of the railing, swaying slightly from the number of bodies pressing against it. One guy climbed up to sit on the ledge, arms stretched wide like he was flying. Someone else started chanting, "Shot! Shot! Shot!" And then he downed a full glass and lost his balance, tumbling backward. The camera cut off. I stared at the screen in stunned silence. My body went cold. Seconds later, my phone rang. "Angela, building management," I answered on the first ring. "Claire, are you watching this?" Her voice was sharp and tight like a wire pulled too far. "Yes," I said, standing so fast I knocked over the stool beside me. "I'm watching." "Police are already on the way. This is the third violation this month. One of your neighbors just called and said someone might have fallen from the balcony into the pool. He's alive, but injured. There's footage. This is the last straw." My brain couldn't catch up fast enough. The words, "fallen, injured, last straw," they bounced off my skull like bullets without landing. "I had no idea she was back in the unit," I said. "I changed the locks. I have documentation, video logs, everything." "I believe you," Angela said. "You've been cooperative. But legally, you're still responsible until this is handled in court. We need immediate action, Claire. Not warnings, not emails. Action. I didn't sleep that night." Instead, I spent the next 6 hours compiling everything. I reopened the security camera folders, found clips from earlier that evening, Savannah using a keypad to enter, which meant someone had shared the new code with her. Probably Mom, or Jackson, maybe both. I saved footage of the growing crowd, the open door policy, the moments when they clearly violated every rule on the HOA codebook. By 6 a.m., I had a folder titled Exhibit C, Criminal Recklessness. I emailed it to my lawyer, the building management, and just for good measure, myself on every account I owned. At 8:14 a.m., I received a call from my mother. I almost didn't answer. But something in me wanted to hear her voice, not to be comforted. God, no, but to confirm the sinking suspicion that she'd try, one last time, to twist this into my fault. "Claire," she said, not a hint of apology in her voice. "What did you do?" "I didn't throw a party." "You called the police." "No," I said. "Angela did, the neighbors did, the building did. I just happened to be watching while your daughter let someone fall off my balcony." "She's your sister," Mom said, like it was still some kind of moral debt I hadn't paid off yet. "She's a lawsuit waiting to happen." "She's devastated. She should be grateful she's not in jail." "You're blowing this out of—" "I'm not blowing anything out of proportion," I snapped. "She's been forging my name, defrauding sponsors, and now she's turning my home into a hazard zone. She's young. She's 27. My mother's voice lowered, quiet now, but laced with threat. "If this gets out, Our family name will be ruined. I let out a bitter laugh. Your concern isn't for the people hurt, it's for reputation. That's always been your currency, hasn't it? She didn't answer. I'm done, I said. I have lawyers, I have footage, I have everything I need. If Savannah or Jackson or anyone else sets foot in my condo again, I will file every possible charge available to me. This could destroy her. She already destroyed me, I said softly. Now she's just finishing the job. I hung up before she could reply. And then I opened Instagram. Savannah had posted a new video, voice trembling, eyes red and perfectly lit. I just don't understand how someone could be so cruel to their own sister, she said to the camera. All I wanted was to create, to make people feel something, and now she's trying to ruin me. I closed the video and opened a blank document. Title: Statement regarding the party incident at Unit 1803 First Line. This is what happens when you turn someone else's life into content. The apartment felt like it was holding its breath. Broken silence seeped in through the cracks, distant sirens, an occasional creak of wood as the building settled, the hollow tap of my fingertips against the keyboard. I hadn't left the condo in almost 48 hours. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. The outside world was loud and reactive, and I needed stillness. I needed control. But the notifications wouldn't stop. My inbox filled with urgent subject lines. Legal action required, immediate response requested, unauthorized activity confirmation. Every brand Savannah had partnered with was now demanding clarification. Some threatening lawsuits, others requesting signed statements proving I had never consented to any use of my name or property. There was one from a skincare company that had featured her video, filmed in my bedroom, using my products, calling herself the owner of a minimalist luxury space in Austin. They wanted a formal apology. From me. The line between my identity and hers had never been thinner. It was like watching your own shadow detach and become someone else's life, one they dressed up in filters and profit margins. The worst part wasn't even the lies. It was the ease with which they had been believed. No one had questioned it. No one had asked, wait, who actually owns this space? They'd seen a confident girl in a nice apartment, and that was enough. Meanwhile, I had done everything right. Worked, saved, kept quiet, and still ended up the villain in her redemption arc. The fallout wasn't contained online. It was personal. It crept into my inbox, into my work Slack, into whispered phone calls from mutual friends asking if I was really taking legal action against my own sister. One of them, Mel, someone I'd once considered a friend, DM'd me to say, Savannah's going through a lot. Maybe don't kick her while she's down. I didn't reply. What was the point? They were seeing the version of her she'd spent years building, the curated victim, the misunderstood dreamer. But I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after the party, not after the fall. I remembered that night like a slow-motion car crash, watching the live stream in real time, seeing a stranger teeter on my balcony railing like it was a stage prop, not a barrier between 20 stories of air and a slab of concrete. The video had been pulled down, but not before going viral on a few niche platforms. Someone had screen recorded it. Someone always does. There were comment threads speculating on the boy's age, whether he'd been drinking, who hosted the party. My name was in every headline. Not Savannah's, not Jackson's, mine. That morning, I received a call from Angela, the building manager. We're holding an emergency HOA meeting, she said. You're on the agenda. Am I being evicted? I asked flatly. There was a pause. We're recommending it, but you'll have a chance to speak before a vote. And just like that, everything I had built was slipping through my fingers. I thought of the late nights, the freelance projects, the dinners skipped so I could pay the down payment. I thought of the moment I signed the mortgage papers, hands shaking with exhaustion and pride. I thought of how Savannah had described it as a manifestation success, as if I had dreamed it into existence instead of grinding myself into burnout for it. I was still staring at the walls when my phone buzzed again. This time it was Elena, my cousin. She hadn't picked sides. Yet. Claire, she said quietly, Savannah's saying if she goes down, she's taking everyone with her. I rubbed my eyes. That sounds about right. She's threatening to go live again. She says she's going to expose family secrets. Dad's gambling, mom's old affair, stuff from way back. I already have it all, I said. I've had it for years. Documents, screenshots, emails. You were keeping tabs on your own family? I was preparing. I didn't know for what exactly, but I always knew the day would come when I'd need to protect myself. Elena was silent for a moment. So what happens now? They forced my hand, I said. I'm not going to let them gaslight me into silence. I've spent too many years biting my tongue while they rewrote the story in their favor. Do you want help? The question caught me off guard. For a second, I didn't know how to answer. I had gotten so used to doing it all alone, collecting evidence, dealing with lawyers, rebuilding myself in the dark. Yes, I said finally. I do. Later that afternoon, I sat in Angela's office, watching her flip through a thick file of HOA violations. 17 complaints, multiple unauthorized guests, filming violations, fire code breaches. She slid the folder toward me without a word. This isn't personal, she said. It's procedural, but you need to shut everything down today. I've already started, I said. Savannah no longer has access. The locks have been changed. My lawyer is handling cease and desist orders for each brand she impersonated me with. Good, she said. But that may not be enough. We've received legal threats from other tenants, especially after the fall. If that boy presses charges, it won't just be Savannah who's named. It will be the unit owner. That's you. I nodded slowly. I understand. You have until the end of the week to fix this, or the board will move forward with termination proceedings. As I walked back to my unit, the building felt colder than usual. Like it no longer belonged to me. My sanctuary had become a legal liability. My name, once just mine, now floated through courtrooms and spreadsheets and group chats I'd never seen. Savannah had infected every corner of my life like a virus in designer heels. And I had finally stopped treating her like family and started treating her like what she had become, a brand that built itself on my silence. I stepped inside my apartment, locked the door behind me, and pulled out the folder labeled Exhibit D. It was time to make my next move. She came alone. No entourage, no Jackson, no phone in hand for once. Just Savannah, standing in the hallway outside my condo, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was messy in a way that wasn't styled. No lashes, no gloss. Just the face I used to see at family dinners before the filters, before the followers, before she decided I was more valuable as a brand than a sister. I didn't speak. I waited. She held up a folder. Manila, no logo, no sparkles. Just plain, like something from a lawyer's desk. I came to talk, she said. Security knows you're here, I replied. I gave them your name. If you try to record anything, I'm not recording, she cut in, voice tired. I'm not here to fight. I considered her for a long moment, then opened the door. Just enough to let her in. I didn't offer her a seat. Savannah stepped inside, eyes flicking over the apartment like she was visiting an old crime scene. In a way, she was. The place looked different now. Most of the damage had been repaired. The walls were freshly painted. The rug was new. The vintage table she cracked had been replaced with a sleeker, colder design. It felt more sterile than before, less like me. But maybe that was the point. She didn't move past the entryway. I brought this, she said, holding out the folder. It's everything. Full confession, signed, screenshots of the contracts I faked, apology letters I'm sending to the sponsors, copies of the email statements I drafted with my lawyer. I took it slowly, my fingertips brushing hers for a second. She was shaking, maybe from exhaustion, maybe from fear. There's also a check in there, she added. Partial restitution. It's not everything, but it's what I have right now. I didn't open the folder. I just stared at her. Why now? She swallowed. Because I lost everything. The sponsors are gone, the brand's pulled out, I'm being investigated, Jackson's gone. My lawyer says I might not get prison time if I cooperate, but I'll be stuck in court for a long time. The apology video made things worse. People think I'm fake. The comments are, she broke off. It's all gone. That was never yours to begin with, I said. I know that now. We stood there in silence, two women who used to share a childhood bedroom, now split by legal lines and social betrayal. I'm not asking you to forget, Savannah said, or even forgive, but I want to make things right, even if it's just a start. She finally stepped forward and sat down on the edge of the couch, the new one, the one I'd bought after she ruined the old one with tanning oil and red wine. She looked around like she didn't recognize the space anymore. "You changed it," she said softly. I had to. She nodded. "It doesn't feel like me anymore." It never was. She flinched but didn't argue. We sat for a moment, just breathing. I hated how familiar her presence still felt, hated that part of me wanted to fix her. That even now, after everything, I could still remember the sound of her laugh when we were kids, hiding under blankets from thunderstorms, sharing stories we made up in the dark. But that girl was gone, buried under influencer deals and entitlement, under lies she thought would never catch up with her. "I should go," she said, standing again. "I'm supposed to meet with my attorney this afternoon. There are more forms, financial disclosures, a possible plea deal." I followed her to the door. She turned to me one last time. "Will you ever forgive me?" I looked her in the eye. "Will you ever actually be sorry?" Her face crumpled just slightly, but she said nothing, just nodded and stepped out into the hall. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and for the first time I didn't feel the need to double-check the bolt. That evening, I met Elena for coffee. She slid into the seat across from me with her tablet in hand, eyes wide. "You're trending," she said, flipping it around. A viral post. "How I took my life back from my influencer sister. A story of identity theft, fraud, and freedom." My name wasn't attached to it, but people knew. The story was out. The receipts were public. The narrative was no longer Savannah's to control. "I didn't write it to go viral," I said. "I wrote it because I was done being quiet." "I know," Elena said. "But people needed to hear it. Your story is giving other people permission to stand up to their families, too. I've read the comments. It's powerful." I sipped my drink. Outside the window, Austin buzzed with its usual energy. Sunset glowing off glass buildings, people weaving through crosswalks, music from a nearby bar spilling into the street. Life went on, even when it felt like yours had stopped. "She's trying," I said after a pause. She brought a folder, confessions, restitution. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Do you believe her?" "I don't know, but I believe she's scared. And for once, I think that fear might actually be real." Elena leaned back. "Do you think you'll ever talk to her again?" "Maybe, someday, but not until I stop hearing her voice every time I open my front door." We parted just after dark. I walked back to the condo alone. No cameras, no chaos. Just me, the keys in my hand, and a city that no longer felt like it was swallowing me whole. Inside, the lights were soft. My space, my name, my silence. I pulled out my laptop, opened a blank document. Not a legal file, not an evidence log, not an apology letter. A story, not hers, mine. The cursor blinked against a white screen like a pulse. I stared at it for a long time, fingers poised above the keys, not yet ready to move. This time there was no sponsor deadline, no obligation to defend myself, no brand narrative to reclaim, just me and my story. For the first time in years, I had the silence, the clarity, and, most importantly, the ownership. I started to type. To everyone who's ever been told to burn themselves out just to keep others warm. The words flowed easier than I expected. It wasn't a manifesto. It wasn't a takedown. It was a reckoning, a personal map of betrayal and boundaries, of the ways family can wrap their selfishness in sentiment, and how easy it is to let them, because you've been conditioned to believe love means enduring it. I wrote about the gaslighting, the manipulation, the times they called me selfish for wanting what was already mine. I wrote about Savannah's lies, but also about mine, the ones I told myself to keep the peace, the excuses I made, the silences I swallowed. It took me 3 hours to finish the piece. When I hit publish, I didn't expect much, maybe a few readers, a quiet ripple. But by midnight, it had ignited into something else entirely. The next morning, I woke to hundreds of messages, some from strangers, others from names I hadn't seen in years. People from my past, my professional circle, even anonymous readers. They weren't pitying. They weren't cruel. They were relating. I thought it was just me. My sister did something similar. Thank you for saying what I never could. You helped me leave. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong to say no. Later that afternoon, I sat in the conference room of my lawyer's office across from Savannah and her attorney. The walls were too white, the table too shiny. Savannah looked different. Tired, yes, but lighter too, as if whatever performance she'd been playing at had finally collapsed in on itself, leaving only the girl who once built castles from cardboard in our shared bedroom. She signed the final confession, agreeing to financial restitution, public clarification of the fraud, and full removal of any digital content featuring my home or my name. Her lawyer pushed the documents toward me. I initialed each one slowly, methodically. My fingers didn't shake this time. When it was done, Savannah looked up. I read what you wrote, she said. The essay. I said nothing. She twisted her hands in her lap. You were right, about everything. I nodded once. I know. She didn't ask for forgiveness again. She didn't cry. She just stood, adjusted the sleeves of her plain sweater, no branding, no aesthetic, and walked out with her lawyer, quietly. And that was the end. No apology video, no dramatic reunion, no final hug, just a door closing. And it stayed closed. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message from Angela at the building. The renovations were officially complete. No further violations, no pending complaints. The HOA had voted unanimously not to pursue action against me. I was in the clear. We've also updated your security system, she wrote. Military-grade encryption, no more uninvited influencers. I smiled, finally. I was safe. Elena met me outside that evening with 2 iced coffees and a grin. You've gone viral again, she said, holding out her phone. My essay had made it into a digital magazine, then a podcast, then a panel discussion on identity theft and family estrangement. I skimmed the comments. Some called me brave, others called me bitter. A few still accused me of jealousy or betrayal. I didn't care. You good? Elena asked as we walked toward the condo. I am now. We rode the elevator in silence. As the doors opened onto my floor, a strange sense of lightness came over me. Not joy, not even pride, just the weightlessness of not being responsible for anyone else's chaos anymore. Inside, the condo was exactly as I'd left it, clean, quiet, mine. Want help setting up for your next piece? Elena asked. No, I said. This one. I need to write alone. She smiled. I get it. When she left, I lit a single candle, opened the windows, and let the dusk breeze into the room. I sat at my desk, the one that had finally returned to its rightful place in the corner near the window, and opened a new document. This wasn't a blog post. It wasn't an expose. It wasn't about Savannah. It was the first line of my novel. Some stories don't begin with love. Some begin with silence, with no one believing you. And then you learn your truth doesn't need their permission. I kept typing, not for views, not for validation, but because this was mine. My story, my name, my home, finally.